Hey everybody, it's Dale here. I've got Sonali, manager in Dallas Audit here with me. One of the things I'll just kind of mention about Sonali, her and I have worked together for a long time, and one of the things I've really appreciated Sonali is her openness and honesty to share just the things that sometimes are the struggles that she deals with, and so she's always shared that stuff one-on-one with me and with others, and well, we're just going to pretend it's just you and me. There's nobody else here, okay?
We'll see.
Yeah. So to give some of everyone a little bit of perspective too, what's interesting is this is not Sonali's first time working remotely. She actually worked for us for 18 months remotely when she was living in San Francisco before she moved back to Dallas to be back in the Dallas office full time here. So how has this experience been for you then, working remotely versus the last time you worked remotely?
So I definitely think there's some similarities. There's a lot of differences too. But having like my own office space, I had that in California, I had that here. So kind of rolling out of bed and just kind of hopping onto work, something that I'm pretty familiar with. So being on calls all day, something that I've also was used to kind of being remote. I would say the differences would be that there's a lot more video calls now, which I think is super cool and different that I wish we kind of did a lot more when I was working remotely. And also everyone's doing this together. I felt like last time it was just like me who was going through this, but this time everyone's doing this, everyone's going through this together. So it's just a different perspective that it's not just you going through it. So, yeah.
So is this one being easier, harder than, since you've already done this before?
I definitely think it's a little harder. I think in terms of kind of planning it and kind of understanding how it all goes, I'm pretty used to it just because I had to kind of plan, prepare, and kind of get my week situated when I was remote. So I guess that aspect, I think it's a lot easier just because I kind of know how to kind of navigate through things like that. But the hard part is when I was working remote last time, like I could get off and get away and do things which we can't do much right now. So trying to balance like stopping and kind of enjoying other things has been a little different, and trying to kind of get used to the whole setting these boundaries between kind of work and kind of personal life has been a little different. But overall, I think the planning wise has been helpful, but still a little different with just have everything that's going on.
So last week we were talking, I was on your direct report call, and we're kind of talking about mindset and just some of the difficulties that are sometimes the struggles, and just with everything that's going on. And can you just share that a little bit, just some of the things that you kind of touched on last week?
Yeah. So I think like the first week that we kind of did remote, I felt like I had this in the bag. I'm like, I know how to get through this. I got through my 331s. I'm like, this is awesome. I got so much done. And then really last week kind of settled in, and I realized that, man, I have so many like concerns about just all this uncertainty, like don't know what's happening. This might be extended. We had a lot kind of going on just with the firm itself. So there was just a lot of like internal struggles that I was like concerned about, that I realized that, man, that's kind of taking over. I'm so concerned about all this unknown, which is kind of hard for me to like reel back and kind of understand, like I need to take a second and just kind of not focus too much on all this unknown, but kind of focus on what I can control, which has been a little different.
Yeah, I know that's something you and I talked about, was just kind of talking through that. Like for me, it's always been, it's like important to identify what those concerns are, and then kind of like listing out, okay, here's what I'm concerned about. Here are the things that I can control within those concerns. And so is there anything I can do about that? What I can control right now? Yes, no. Well, if I can't, well, there's nothing I can do. Well, if I can, well, then I can do something about that at this point in time right now. And so for me, why is that so important to identify that is those concerns that we have, those thoughts, we're always going to have them. We have them all the time. They're never going to go away. And so the more that we can build the awareness of when those pop up and pulling it back to what we can control, really it pulls us back to being present. And so, when you really step back and think about it, what are those concerns that we have? Well, typically it's something that potentially may happen in the future, which we have no control over, may not ever even happen, or something that's happened in the past, which we can't do anything about anyway. But those things are always going to come up, but the more we can pull back to the present moment and what we can control, just for me anyway, it's really helped me be more present on a day-to-day basis too.
No, I agree. Like that's, I think, something that I worked on this week. I kind of, like how we talked about last week on our call, wrote down the things that were my concerns, which were like just this uncertainty on this virus, how everything's going with like work, making sure I'm always doing like my best and everything like that. And really kind of took that to what I can control. I'm doing all the necessary precautions or the recommendations out there. And so I feel like that's what I can control, and that's what I'm doing and focusing on that. And in work aspect, just kind of knowing that doing what I need to get done, focusing on kind of making sure like I'm there for me and my team and everything like that is something that I can control. And so really trying to focus on that versus all the unknown. As a planner, it's so hard to do that. I like to plan out 6 months in advance. And my husband always tells me, like, you need to just focus on a week at a time. So that's what I've been doing now because, you never know. 6 months from now, a lot can change.
A lot can change.
It really helped. I still am the planner. So my calendar, if you look at it, is fully scheduled out for this week. So it allows me to still keep that, but not really focusing on the unknown and kind of focus on what I really can do now and today and be present. So.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned over the years is I've always focused on what I could control and like being positive and try to, as much as they probably ignore the concern.
Yeah.
But the more and more I've learned too is building the awareness of the concern, because those always are still going to come up, but using that as the mechanism to say, okay, here's the concern, and just pulling me back to that awareness of the control and being present, and kind of working back that way, I think has been very important, because otherwise it's very easy then once that concern steamrolls, if you don't learn that, you can really, really get caught up in that concern then too.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's hard to do, but we can.
Yes. Well, this has been great. So I really, really appreciate your openness and you sharing with me, and thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.